Rightio, just going to do some test cuts with a chain that was supplied to me from Sweden. This is ATOP Racing cut chain. I had a gentleman contact me on Instagram and asked if I'd be interested in giving this a go, so he very kindly sent me a 25-inch loop. It's 38063. This is obviously different to the ATOP square ground that a lot of people know from America. We'll see if I can get this to zoom in on the cutter and hopefully focus. It's, mind you, this isn't a full product review. I'll do that another day. I just want to have some fun with it and try it. Hopefully, is it going to focus? This is the chain that I ran on the 400.1 last weekend. It's kind of hexacut styled, but there are still some differences which I will go into a little bit more detail with the profile at the time when I actually do a full sort of video on this. I just want to set the camera up and do some test cuts. After last weekend, or depending on when I post this video, after the weekend I ran it on the 400. The wood I was cutting was stupidly hard, dirty, gritty, had rocks in it, so I got 4 cuts before the chain was blunt. So I have since resharpened it, and yeah, hopefully we're ready to go in some nicer wood this time to get a little bit more feedback on it to see what edge durability will be like, preferably obviously in Australian timbers. No doubt they will contact some guys in America and get some testing done over there, but they were interested to see how it worked in the hardwoods that we have down here. So we'll go and set the camera up and try and get a couple of videos. Rightio, test cuts of the ATOP Racing chain. I'm actually running it on a ported and also stroked 500i, so it's got a 2mm stroker crank. I'm just giving it some runs to settle it in and test run it as well. There'll be more on that in the future.
Sorry, you can redo that if you want.
That actually cuts really nice. You can see, judging by the chips coming out of it, it's actually, yeah, cuts bloody good. Probably could be a little bit hungrier. I might give it a swipe on the depth gauges, even though it's obviously cutting okay. I got to push on the saw pretty hard to keep it off the limiter. Saw's obviously got a fair amount of horsepower as well, so it can take it. But at the moment, definitely one of the smoothest boring chains that I've used in a while. We're in just some Tasmanian hardwood. Don't ask me what it is. It's a tree. It's laying on the ground. It's now getting turned into firewood. That's about the best description you're going to get out of me. I'm not a green thumb. I don't know fancy pants horticultural names for trees. It's dry. You can see it's splitting open from laying out in the weather. Yeah, so that's about all you're going to get out of me as far as the description goes. But definitely with that chain, very happy with it so far. I'll go and grab a flat file, give the depth gauges a quick hit and go again. Cheers. Righto, round 2 on the ATOP Racing chain from Sweden. Just had 2 swipes of flat file on the depth gauges just to try and make it a little bit hungrier. Let's see what this does. Definitely better. Could probably even go just a little bit more in this wood. I'll try it in a few of the other logs that I've got laying around here. Some of them are harder again. There's still a few that have got some bark on them. So I really want to try it in some of these because it is a pretty narrow kerf chain, and I have a feeling in this sort of thick stringy ropey bark, it'll probably get bound up a fair bit, so it'll be interesting to see what it does. I'm trying to save this one for later on. That way it's about 1.5 metres, give or take, so that will be a nice test for a couple of saws. Alright, at this stage, I'm not sure how well that's going to focus, 'cause sun's on the screen, I can't really see. But yeah, pretty impressed so far. It's holding an edge much better than it did last weekend. It has probably dulled off a little bit, but I couldn't, to be fair, I'd have to go and throw either a STIHL or Husky or Oregon chain on and try and replicate it to gauge an idea of the difference after that amount of work. But certainly at this point in time, definitely doing a pretty good job. I'll do another video in the next few weeks in the workshop with more actual details on the chain, with the information I've been given about the chain, but thought this would get the ball rolling and show off what I'm actually using. Cheers all, that'll do for now. Rightio, changed my mind. One last video for the day. I figure everyone's probably going to ask what it's like at ripping, or noodling as a lot of people call it. So let's give it a go. Yep, that seems alright.